Hello. Over the past 15 years, there has been an expansion in the RPG market almost as explosive as its original golden age. And with role-playing seemingly more popular than ever, it's perhaps no surprise that a grim and perilous classic found its way back to the tabletop. My guest today is the co-founder and current CEO of Cubicle 7, the company responsible for the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and the Age of Sigmar game Soulbound, as well as 2 games that explore the universe of 40k. We talk about how the RPG industry has evolved over time, the weight of history when reviving a classic game, and the future of all 3 GW-related titles. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today I'm in conversation with Dominic McDowall. Dom, thank you so much for joining me. I wondered if we might start by talking a little bit about your journey into the RPG industry. How did you get started with RPGs, and then how did you end up working in them?
Absolutely, yes. So it was, I think, with like a lot of people, it was a long road into role playing that started at a tender age. So I think, probably very or reasonably commonly, I think, starting through Star Wars. I think as a child, I dread to think how many times I would have watched A New Hope. It was. Yeah, definitely quite a lot. I'm so glad that like old videos and things like that don't come with a Steam calculation of hours spent on. Yeah, that's the it's like the digits of shame, isn't it? On a.
I'm looking forward to. I mean, I say this like it's definitely going to happen, but I like the idea that if you ever go through the pearly gates into heaven, then you can reflect on your life and sort of see all of those metrics and those stats. And just know exactly how much you did invest in every movie and game and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I go through all of that, and I'll look at like Mountain Blade or Total War. Each of the Warhammer editions of Total War, and I look at those mostly 3-digit numbers, and I go, yeah, I'd do that again. That's that's perfect. Yeah, I wish it was higher. That's what retirement's for, I think, isn't it? So Star Wars and sort of any kind of science fiction or fantasy that I could get my hands on. Great memories of sitting in the library in Bridgend in South Wales, going through their very extensive Doctor Who, the little hardback serializations. I think I must have read all of those. And then finding Lord of the Rings and a load of those sort of like the stalwarts that that I think they will. Most of us share most of those, don't we? Always into all things sci-fi, fantasy, and geeky in a big way. Then I think probably it was game books was the next thing. So Fighting Fantasy and Lone Wolf. I think it was Lone Wolf that turned into a proto role-playing game for my Lego. That was there was a worrying number of character sheets and tracking weapons and gold crowns and all the rest of it for Robin Hood and the the Lion Knights. I think it all sort of like came together when we went to visit my aunt and uncle and cousins, and my cousin Simon was painting skeletons in a room in the house, and what are those? He was like, oh, there, yeah. He introduced me to Games Workshop and said, oh, there's one here, you should go and have a look. So that was it. Then I think I had Talisman for Christmas that year, and Talisman for birthday, Blood Bowl for Christmas, and then was in that was the Warhammers came next, and I think it was the Warhammer Fantasy Battle, then Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. So and that was that. So like I say, probably reasonably kind of common experience, but it's always been it's always been a part of me, always been a part of my life. Even I think having my early 20s kind of hiatus from a lot of gaming, I'd still be getting White Dwarf and keeping up with things and going, one day I'll get back to it. So but I never really considered it as something that I could do professionally. I think from the depths of South Wales, I think I did consider like if it was a potential thing, but I think it just seemed quite inaccessible, I think. So it wasn't something really that I thought of as a potential thing to do until I met Angus, who was at the time working in leisure games in London, and he'd been over to Gen Con and a load of other conventions for leisure games, looking for the cool new games that were coming to go and snap them up. So conversations where when I moved up to London, he was he was in the game group that I was a part of, and we just sort of got chatting, and he sort of had seen companies that there are role-playing game companies, and it might be sort of like very small numbers of people and all the rest of it, but that it was a viable thing to do. So I was I think early sort of like rungs of jobs and things. Like I dropped out of university to be a rock star, so I'd moved up to London to do that. So amazing that hadn't worked out. I think I played all the Camden toilet venues, and then very acrimoniously split up with the band, which was great. I think it's perfect kind of capsule experience of being a musician. And I think when you're as bad as I am at music, then that's probably the best you can hope for. But so I was looking around for what it was that I really wanted to do. I think with my life, and seeing that there was this industry to whatever degree that was a viable option was that sounded cool. And again, with very little realistic, I think, expectation that this thing might come off. Angus and I started Cubicle 7 as an evening and weekend kind of hobby company kind of thing, doing what we loved. And who knows? Let's give it a go and see what happens. So yes, that was that. So it started off really kind of there's a couple of like own things that we're working on. I mean, some of the things that you'll see today still like Victoriana and with some of the Cthulhu stuff that we started with as well. And the real sort of like I think the first sort of step or realization really of okay, this could be something a bit more was the Doctor Who license. So that was kind of not really like an accident, but it was, I think we had kind of a plan that we could accelerate the growth of the company, or to help us to get it a bit more established with licensing. So we thought if we could get a license, then you get you get some attention, and it helps you to stand out, and all those sort of good things that come with working with a well-known property. So we thought, well, Doctor Who hasn't got a role-playing game. We all love Doctor Who. Let's see, let's give it a go. Not expecting to get a meeting even, I think, let alone anything else. So we worked really hard getting this pitch put together, and it was me and Angus there, Dave Chapman, who's still working on Doctor Who and other things with Cubicle 7 now, Fred Hicks, who was one of the guys at Evil Hat, and Chris Birch, who went on to start Modiphius after he worked with us on a couple of games to start with. So we put this pitch together, and we thought, this is proper, so we better like put our put some effort into it, and we delivered this thing, and it was like a fully printed, laid out proposal and the first chapter of the game, and it was we did our best, and they invited us in for a meeting, and we just thought, well, there's no way this is there's no way this is actually going to happen. So this is great practice. We'll be able to, we'll know what it's like after this to go in and do that kind of thing. And it was like a half-hour appointment, and towards the end of the hour and a half that we were in there, they said, right, well, this all sounds great. Let's get you back in, and we'll talk contracts and talk numbers. And it just blew our minds, really. So the second time we were just terrified, because we had nothing to lose before, so we were full of confidence, very laid back. All of a sudden it was like, oh, this could happen. Oh no, we could screw this up. So but obviously we didn't do too badly. So that was that. And then we had a Doctor Who license and a fledgling company and all the rest of it. So it was good. I look back on it very fondly. That was the I think where it sort of changed from we're doing cool stuff to we're doing cool stuff, and maybe this could this could be something. That was it then. And then having the having that license meant that we were a bit more of a what's the word? We looked a bit more like we were doing, what we were doing, and we had something really tangible as well. So again, just very fortuitously, Rebellion Developments, the Kingsley brothers were looking at various sort of genre companies for investment, and they saw something in us, and that kind of like let us go take the company like as a full-time thing, and let go of the day jobs and all that terrifying kind of stuff, and let's make a good go of it.
That's great. Yeah, so that was quite early days then when you got the Doctor Who license. How long had you been established at that point?
I think by the time it was signed, I think it was around 2 years, I think. Right. So we've done a few, a couple of initial books, and the like Victoriana, one of our own properties. That's Andrew Peregrine was leading on the second edition of that, and Chris Birch was doing Starblazer for us from the old DC Thompson comics. So there was a few things going on, but very early days.
Yeah. And then, so what was it like expanding the business then over time? So as you're taking on the licenses, now you've, as well as the opportunity, now presumably there's also the expectation now that you've got to do more and produce more and more quickly and sort of all that sort of stuff. So how did you go about sort of growing the business into sort of what it was going to become?
So I think that we were if not the last companies that kind of established before crowdfunding came along. So it's kind of like, I think it's probably quite a different story to where maybe some companies that have come up since would that would be a bigger part of it. So we had really just like gradually, I think, is probably the best way. It was a lot of hard work and self-funding, and we had the phase with Rebellion, and then when I bought out of the Rebellion group, was it about 2014, I think it was. So from there, just gradually, really, and painfully, and learning from mistakes and all the rest of it. So that makes it sound bad. It was great fun as well, but I do feel like I've made every mistake under the sun. But that is how you grow, I think, isn't it? That's how you sort of like move things forward. And to a certain degree, I'm quite a bit grateful that it was certainly in those early years fairly steady, I can only imagine like some of the things that I had a few more years to learn things, I think, maybe than having if you have sort of like a big early success. I think sometimes you don't learn some of the lessons that stand you in a better stead when the stakes are bigger, or I don't know. Maybe that's just what I tell myself to make me feel better. But yeah, I mean, the strategy was always to keep doing cool stuff that I enjoy. It was. When was that? I think from 2011. So I went back to sort of running it solo from 2011, from that period on. I think that was kind of like where my head was at. I think really just trying to, the main goal was being able to, keep a roof over my head, feed the kids, and enjoy what I do. So that there was that. For one degree of victory condition was be able to keep doing this. So that's fairly slow. Now beyond that as well, I think that I do love what I do, and I like I like doing it with. I like making a range of games as well. So that there was a degree of that there's by building the company, we get to do more cool stuff. And I think that the more I got into that, there was a little bit as well. Actually, it's quite a challenge itself in building a business, and I quite like the idea of building a business that is good and sustainable, and that might last as well. So that's that there's definitely some satisfaction to be had in that as well. It's definitely a challenge, but yeah. But no, it's I have no complaints.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, it did kind of, it did grow steadily, and I think it's been maybe a little bit more. We definitely hit sort of like a point where the growth accelerated a lot. So we were I was in the fastest growing companies in Europe list from the Financial Times earlier this year, and that's weird. It's not something that really happens. And it's and again, it's I'm sure we're the smallest company on the list by a big margin, but it's nice to think you're doing something right as well, isn't it? That's always good to see.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and as over that period of time, then has the industry changed a lot? Or you mentioned Kickstarter. I imagine that's changed quite a lot of stuff. But what's the RPG industry look like now compared to what it looked like when you were sort of kicking things off?
I think that there's it's great that that there's a lot more companies and a lot more of such a range of sizes. There's lots of really interesting, cool stuff being made, and that's really, really great. I think there's definitely a sense that there's this thriving creative I don't know, scene or whatever, but that's really, really great to see. I mean, I think crowdfunding has again helped with that. It's put the means of raising the money that you need to do something on a professional level within reach of way more people, which is great. It's that's it's really cool. It's been, what else has been going on? I think it's been nice to see just a new generation of players as well. I think that's been really good to see. There were a lot of concerns in the 2000s about what was happening to the hobby, and how sustainable was it, and were there new people coming into it? So which is a bit weird now to think actually back to. I remember that being sort of like something that was spoken about as a cause for concern maybe, and also on the role playing side, because there's big differences between the different strands of gaming as well. So it's great to see, really, just loads of people of all ages, a really diverse range of people being able to get into gaming and find out how awesome it is as well. That's one of the really lovely things about it, isn't it? It's I think people who get role-playing games, like really get role-playing games, and there's nothing else like it. So I love sharing that with people, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, and never will be. But it's for the people that it resonates with, it's just really powerful, and it's great. So that's been really good. As other changes, I think sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it can be quite hard to see, because you're just sort of like doing your thing, and well, if you're me anyway, I'm just sort of like over here, sort of oblivious to everything else, just making cool stuff. I don't need to look out and see what else is going on in the world. Worst networker in history. That's me. So maybe you should talk to other people sometimes. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. I think I covered the main things. I did, obviously, with it's the headline, obviously, of like the success of Dungeons and Dragons, with the 5th edition, bringing in a whole load of new players, and people who maybe wouldn't have felt wouldn't have looked at role playing before. Combined obviously with then the geek culture stuff, with from Big Bang Theory through to Stranger Things and beyond. I think I've gone from it's gone from the place where to try and describe role playing to your gran, you'd never actually achieve that. I think back in when I was younger, it would all just like, no, yes dear, which I think would be that's all you'd get to. Whereas like now with the average person, when they say, oh, what's a role-playing game, you can say, like Dungeons and Dragons, and they go, oh yeah, that's really interesting. You do tend to get that reaction now. Whereas if in the late 80s, early 90s, if you were to produce a couple of Space Marines or a White Dwarf in school, there would be violence, and not of the fictional kind. Not all the time, but it was you would encounter strong views.
Yes.
Whereas that's I'm sure that still may go on in some places, but from the and now it's nice being able to see it sort of through my son's eyes as well. My daughter didn't join us, but it's amazing overhearing sort of like the crazy mashup RPG adventures. It's really cool to see the next generations, like what they make of it. Awesome stuff.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Space Marines, and obviously that the sort of Games Workshop spectre looms large in the industry, in the hobby, and I think it was around 2017, right, when Cubicle 7 started working on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So how did that come about? How did you end up working on WFRP and sort of bringing it back to life?
So that's a big hesitation for the start, isn't it? That's, that's how my brain's working. Right. So it was just a delight from start to finish, really. It was I think it was at Essen one year, at the big games convention there, some of the Games Workshop licensing team came over and then started talking to me, and we established that we had many sort of mutual interests, and I think that they'd seen a lot of what we were doing, and really liked the Cubicle 7 approach to things and how I was putting together some of the some of the sets and things that we were doing. So they had basically explained that they were looking for a company to take on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and something else, and they really liked Cubicle 7, and would I be interested in having a further discussion about it? And it was there's those sort of like career milestone kind of things, aren't there? And it was just like it was great, and it felt right, it felt actually, we're on the same wavelength as, and it was the right time for us for Cubicle 7, and just fantastic. A little bit of that kind of like pinch myself to see if I'm dreaming or not. It was just brilliant. And you carried on in that vein. It's just been great. So we were initially getting into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and how we were going to approach sort of like the 4th edition of it as well. And then also we were talking at the same time, maybe unrelatedly, but obviously relatedly because it was the same sort of like companies involved, but the potential of exploring Age of Sigmar as well, and bringing some of that sort of the role-playing game street level kind of point of view to that as well. So no, it was just kind of dream come true territory. I think if I was going to pick something at the time, then that definitely would have been it. I think it was just brilliant timing all around, and
and that WFRP 4th edition. So obviously that's I imagine that's sort of quite a mantle to take on. There's a lot of history to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and obviously a lot of different attempts at doing it, and coming off of the back of 3rd, which was quite a different attempt to what had been done previously. I mean, what was your team's original intention when you were sort of sitting down to say, okay, what can we bring from older editions to make something new that has the lineage but is also the Cubicle 7 WFRP? So how did you sort of square that?
So I think I felt really strongly from the start, really, that that there was like with any setting that's been established for a long time, you're trying to find the threads that run through it, and I think everything will have sort of like bits and pieces of lore will go in and out of fashion. Some bits will be more because of a particular time, or that belong to that. So I think really trying to get the what's the core of the setting. So and I think because it was one of my first role-playing games as well, I think I really wanted to capture the feeling of wonder from that experience of discovering it. And because I think obviously Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay's got loads of established fans, but we want to bring new people in as well, so you don't want to lose track of what's going to make it really cool as that first impression, the first, as you're getting to know it and start to fall in love with it. That was in the mix somewhere. I think looking at the rule set, I think the D100 was certainly very integral to my experiences of WFRP for a long time. So I was fairly settled on the D100 to start with. But having said that, I did spend about 3 or 4 months really banging my head off the D100. So just D100 rule sets have got their own little quirks and foibles and things like that. So trying to how do I address these? So that was interesting, and I think that that was kind of like where uncapping it from percentile kind of like sort of came in at that stage as well, because I think I needed that the flexibility. I think when you're looking at a dice rule system, you've got there's certain levers that you can use, and you know, part of how you're going to work with it is how you identify, or which levers you identify as the ones that you want people to be able to play with, sometimes then you'll come across some false limits that are put in place. So the you know, with the D100, you know, sometimes some people do obviously think of it as a percentile dice, but there's no reason that percentile has to come into it at all. You're rolling on a range, and that range is kind of like adjustable depending on modifiers and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, that was definitely one of those early things. I was like, oh yeah, if I just sort of like take the cap off of 100, because it doesn't really matter, because there'll be pluses and minuses and there's comparatives going on. So yeah, that was one of those sort of like, okay, yeah, this is how I can help bring the D100 into the place I want it to be in. Then the few of the other sort of like design objectives that I had early on were to make sure that we're speeding up fights. I mean, it's a personal bugbear, but I think it's not that personal as well. I think it's fairly widespread, that one. And whether that's sort of like the whiff factor thing that again, D100 systems can be prone to it, where you just have rounds and rounds of people failing at what they're trying to do, and it can be a little bit what's the word? Not fun, I think. You know, once or twice. I mean, failure has got to be part of it. You need that jeopardy in a system. You know, otherwise, why bother rolling? But by the 7th time, you've done nothing that round, because you've it's like, I get that's, you know, I need to be able to fail, but not like for an hour and a half. That's quite long at a table, isn't it, for that sort of thing? So I don't I've never really enjoyed those. A combat lasts a whole evening games. I'd rather be playing tabletop war game, I think, if I'm going to do that, rather than a role-playing game. You're there for a more balanced experience. You want some non-missing, actually talking and following up on the plots and things like that. So so that was in there too. And then the first thing there was the opposed roles for combat and anything where you're in conflict with somebody. So and the idea there really was trying to make sure that for every roll of the dice there was an actual action, or actually an actual outcome that came from it. So so with that one, somebody will always win and somebody will fail during an exchange of blows. Well, you can draw, exactly, but that's fine. I think every now and again you can have that sort of like, the blades clang together and they grimace at each other. Making sure that every time that there was a fight, every round something was happening. So and then the advantage system came in as the support for that. So if somebody attacks you and you win that exchange rather than nothing happening, you get advantage, which gives you a +10 on your next attack to them. So it's I really wanted to. There's another part of that as well, but there is an outcome of everything. So that drives things along, and then the other part of the advantage system is that it accelerates the combat. So if you're winning, you're building up this advantage, and it's kind of like momentum, and but also it's like psychological as well. So if you start winning, then you're spooking people a little bit, and they're more likely to be a bit flustered and a bit panicked and like trip over a stool, or you can jump up on the table and kick them over and stuff. But but basically pushes combats in the way they're probably going to go anyway, but I want this combat finished in 40 minutes rather than 4 hours. So So that was fairly early on. What else is coming out? I think, yeah, the career system. I didn't really want to force moves between careers. So I wanted some progression within careers. I did get people who wanted to stay and just be a really good rat catcher. I wanted to, let them. Rather, no, that's it. If you ever want to be better, or if you ever want to be tougher, you're going to have to go and find another job. So that was another thing that was in there from the start. I think introducing the world with the text at the beginning over the lovely spreads that the 2-page spreads that the art team put together. That was something I wanted to, that introduction to the world, where I don't with that one you're moving from the borders of the empire into the heart of the city. So that was quite a nice opportunity to talk about various different bits and pieces, and very cool. So yeah, that was nice.
On that topic, roughly, the visual identity of Cubicle 7's Wolf-Rup is quite, it's both reminiscent of first edition, and certainly, but it's quite distinct as well, I think. So how did you sort of find that space to occupy from an art design perspective?
Yeah, so I think we were, we spent a good amount of the time with really with that old kind of art. Not old kind of art. That's really descriptive, isn't it? With some of the some of the art that's inspired us through the life cycle of the game. There we go. That's very scientific sounding, isn't it? And that was ranging from some of the some of the pre-issue 100s Warhammer sort of like covers, and some of the Warhammer adjacent covers, even in some places. I'm not really just a copy of it, but try and get the vibe from it, and sort of like that informs things, doesn't it? I think that it goes into the cauldron anyways. You're sort of like mixing everything up, and then looking through some of the 90s stuff, and picking out our best bits of those, but I think as well just trying to pick up what are the bits that really made it Warhammer, and wonderfully eloquent, just into the bits that really landed with us. I mean, it's like, that's it. And again, working with GW as well, they were really really, really happy to contribute and be in with that as well. So that helps to keep us on keep us in line with them. But I think with the rule book, we had John Hodgson, Scott Purdy, and Sam Manley, and Ralph Horsley, and I should open the book and read it because my memory is terrible. But there was a real sort of like collaboration, and they had a really good approach to working together as a team as well, which I think really shows in just how connected and consistent, and it's just all it all really works well together, and with it's something that can be a challenge really with role-playing games, where you've got a lot of different illustrators, and a fair few of them are freelancing. You have that risk of things looking a little bit too varied in style or approach or what have you, and it's sort of you've got to manage that quite carefully. So I think with this one, it was a lot was on the core sort of staff team, and people who had worked with us closely over the years. So that definitely helped.
Yeah, and one of the big undertakings, I guess, it's sort of from the start of your the 4th edition, was revisiting the Enemy Within. So the legendary campaign, many arguably the best ever campaign in role-playing game history.
Indeed, yeah.
I mean, again, quite a weight of history on your shoulders. But you guys took on like a director's cut. You brought back Graham Davies, who had worked on some of the original stuff. Like, how did you bring together that enormous project?
I think some would say madness. I don't know. I think when I'd as soon as sort of like the I realized that the what's the word, that it was real, that there was I wasn't dreaming. I think I went into the what did I want to do, what was the beyond the rule book, what was the plan. So obviously I knew I wanted to do really good starter sets, and again just help bring people into the game as much as possible. But kind of the second thought I think was I would love to do the Enemy Within. I think and not just because of the eBay prices, although it took me a long time to collect a full set. And I didn't want anyone else to have to go through that. So but yeah, very early on, that was just sort of, I don't know, yes, I think this feels right. I think that we were at that kind of that time. I just thought, no, that it's something that we should do. So that's something that I really wanted to do as well. So unfortunately, I'd been in touch with Graham a bit in the past over other projects, so had the line of communication with him, and it was just really lovely. He was just really keen to revisit it, and I think he said at the time something along the lines of, well, I've got over 30 years of playtest feedback. If that's so, yep, I think that'll come in handy. They're just really lovely. It's it just, again, it's one of those things that just go, okay. It's I think it's really great to be able to bring it to bring the campaign accessibly back for people, and also to do that for a new audience, and for people who have got into the hobby since. It was the right time, and then the scale of it. I did get carried away, I think. I think there's a lot of material sort of like in and around the Enemy Within, and I think that we couldn't go too far down there's only so much you can get into a book, basically, because I think for every extra thing that you can put in, there will be people who really want the core experience. And I think I was conscious, it's not just to sit on shelves. We want people to play through this. And I think even if you're going through the campaign fairly economically with the additional material, it's still, I think what we say is about 18 months of playing material. Now, it's, if you add in the extra bits, then it's going to be longer, but there was a sweet spot, I think, to find of a campaign that people may achievably get through with the same group, but at the same time, that there's so much good stuff around the Enemy Within, that it's I didn't want anything to end up on the cutting room floor. So that's where the companions were born from. So there's a volume for each of the 5 volumes of the Enemy Within, it was a big undertaking. And then of course you were sort of, well, what else could be handy with this? So we thought, well, we better bring the Middenheim and the Altdorf books in a bit earlier. So it's a 10 or 12 book series depending on your point of view. It's been great. And one of the lovely things as well was being able to do the collector's editions, and really sort of like dig into some of that lovely imagery, the kind of wonderful sort of woodcut kind of tarot card thing. It's just yeah, it was really. But again, all of the stuff I think with role-playing games tends to be a labor of love. So I don't think it's something that you can you could probably roll it out for everything, but there was something a bit special about the enemy within.
Yeah, absolutely, and like you say, beautiful editions. The collectors especially are gorgeous, but yeah, they're all fantastic books. So you've got this whole wealth of material to draw on that's been done before in different versions of the game. Obviously, I imagine you and the team have got loads of exciting ideas for like new stuff that you want to do as well.
Yep.
I know you've announced, I think Lustria is coming out early next year, which is sort of long awaited in many ways supplement to take a look at the sort of Lustrian continent. But you've also got Marienburg, which I now consider to be my hometown because I've sort of moved in and really have loving Marienburg, doing a Marienburg army and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to that one. But how do you decide what else to work on? Like, where do you go next?
So I think with planning a role playing game line, you're looking at what people need to have the best experience, really. So I think there's always that there's a bit of context for what have we done recently, what's in the line, what isn't in the line. And then, I mean, there's a large dollop of what do we want to do as well. Which bits are we going to find the most interesting to go to? But that tends to be, I'd say, probably 100% within the what kind of things do we need to do next, and what do people want? So that's the broad approach. I think with WFRP in particular, I think that there's a because we started out with the celebration of the enemy within. I think we're concentrating now on newer things. So I think that we're looking for areas that haven't been places before in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, or if there's things that maybe places or character types or the types of stories. The first sort of I think the first when we moved up into Soulbound, which is an area that hasn't had detail before, and then up into the Sea of Claws and bringing in some of the ocean, the sea travel, and that sort of like opened up ways of getting to other places. So that was kind of our strategy. Now, we weren't sure at the time whether going back, there was that order of Salzman versus Marienburg. So sure. So that was a debate, with obviously talking it through with everybody involved, and I think that where we came to, I think, was that the Mindheim's great, and we're definitely going to be. So Marienburg is we will have soft spots, I think, for Marienburg, though. Those White Dwarf articles, it was a question of which order rather than if. So we thought if we went through Salmond and Sea of Claws, then again we were adding a bit more of the completely new bits, new areas and new lore. So that's what we thought was decided was the way to do it at the time. So but for people who think, how could you? That's terrible. The wasteland will rise and be coming for you. But it's being worked on at the moment. So I'll have that. New areas really. So we're looking at dwarves and high elves as well at the moment. So stuff in development there. A bit more of an expansion of the non-empire characters that you can play and things like that. There's an enormous list of things. Really, there's we'll be doing this for some time, and I wouldn't have it any other ways. It's just fantastic to work on. So lots of. I think that's probably sort of like the next sort of like range of stuff will be a bit of that beyond the empire.
And you may not be able to answer this question, but obviously exploring the other sort of geographies and geographical areas of the world, that's super exciting. I'm very looking forward to a lot of that. have you considered, or are you toying with the ideas of exploring other sort of time periods of the Warhammer world, perhaps? So, like, bring it in line with the upcoming old world and look at different eras of the Empire, for instance. So, is that something that
Yeah,
may be on
yeah.
the cards?
I think it's that is definitely something that is very interesting. I think that sounds great. I think that uh, now I've just stopped, haven't I? Absolutely. I mean, I think that definitely would be great to do. Keep an eye on the website for more news and announcements and stuff like that. There's a lot planned.
Hmm. That's great. And obviously you're still doing Soulbound, which is the Age of Sigmar game, and lots of stuff in the 40k universe as well. Is there
Yes.
any, I suppose, just before getting to the future of those lines, is there a difference in developing for those games, or is it a very similar approach? Because obviously they don't have the same history that you've got for WFRP. So do you have a bit more free reign, maybe?
That's a good question. I think because in one sense, no, it's a similar approach to what we're developing and the how we're working with the settings to really bring out their strengths. And I think get it right. I think it's one of the tricky parts of licensing. I think is that you need to be as true as possible to the core expression of the setting. So nobody really wants Dominic McDowall's take on the old world as he sees it. It's a funny one because it's a trap that people can fall into, I think, sometimes. And we sometimes find that when we're working with people that that can fall into that of this is a tweak, I think, that explains this thing that was struck me as intriguing in the background of this one page of a book that was made once. Sometimes you have to go, well, that's very cool, and we like that, but people are coming to us for the experience of the thing that we're working in. So in one sense, that's consistent, across everything. I think with what are the differences? With Age of Sigmar, Soulbound, that's, I'd say, probably where you're where you can see the difference of the previously explored places and the areas of the world that have been covered in depth. It is very different to something that's been around for decades. So that's definitely a difference there. And then it's a case of just working really closely with the with the team at Games Workshop to make sure that where we are developing things, we're developing them in line with their vision for how it'll develop. But it was really exciting to be involved, in a fairly early days of as that setting really was coming into place. We've been up and running for a few years before we started. It was really, really cool to see all that working, and it's like such an amazing amount of creativity, and just like the really kind of thick and fast world building that's like some of the the descriptions of things in Age of Sigmar. It's like you get so much from like 3 paragraphs. Like, wow, we could write like a whole book on what is this thing? It sounds amazing. We've got to dig into there. So that was an embarrassment of riches, really. There was a lot of really cool stuff to get to grips with. So yeah, that was definitely for Age of Sigmar there that kind of like close work and trying to make sure that we really did get where things, what things were and what they weren't as well. Yeah, that was really cool. With WFRP, there's like I said, I think it's making sure with that we're meeting that challenge of really getting to the core of it, where especially where things have gone through a few different kind of presentations and things like that. So what's at the heart of this, rather than choosing our favorite take on something, or and again, we're presenting things in today's games and things. So there's bits where the presentation of something would be different now compared to how it would have been in the 80s or the 90s. So that's a challenge. Then with Warhammer 40,000, again, that's got that's the huge amount there for it. I think a similar challenge, I think maybe just trying to really get to the heart of each thing, and what it's all about, and then you can extrapolate out a little bit more of how it would appear in any one given situation, or because we've got on one hand you've got the presentation of the Imperium, which was across the board. Now there's the nice and not so the not so nice and even worse. I don't know. How do you? What's the shorthand? But anyway, you've got your sort of like your large scale descriptions of how the different departments and machinery of the empire of the Imperium interacts, and then on the lower level, then that's where you're sort of like trying to bring those general kind of those big themes at the heart of everything. How do they apply at a local level, and how do you make sure that all still works in the same way, and maintains its own internal logic, and again trying to be as what's the word, as pure as possible. I definitely had quite that Zen kind of when you start working on the properties, they're sort of like unlearn everything that you think and then really just look at it all a bit more objectively, rather than my faction is best and and your witch elves have a puny save. So there was an element of that, but I think it's I think that probably covers having the respect for the for all of that wonderful lore and stuff that's developed over the years, and trying to do it justice, really. I think that's that's the main thing. It's we love this stuff, and just trying to work with it in the right way, and make sure that the stuff that we fell in love with is coming through, and we're presenting that to everybody else.
And it sounds great, I think, and absolutely sounds like the right way to tackle much loved IP, essentially, isn't it? These are worlds that people really love.
No, absolutely.
You recently, I think it was Ulfenkhan recently came out for Soulbound, which is the sort of Curse City, the city that's set in, and Imperium Maledictum, which is the sort of lower level 40k expansion. Where do you see those lines going next? Is there sort of, I imagine there's plenty more planned in those ranges?
Oh yes, definitely. So with Ulfenkhan, which actually has a complete new power level for Age of Sigmar Soulbound, which is very interesting. But the Grim and Perilous, rules there for that. So but basically in Soulbound, you're proper heroes. You're rolling a fistful of dice, and straight out of the gate, your character will be able to go toe to toe with junior to mid-level forces. Don't rush at the greater demons, but you'll you can do some satisfying stuff. So with Ulfencon, obviously there's a much bleaker tone as the city slides off towards the Shaishnadir. So there's a lower power level, basically. So you're more frailly mortal, and in this horrendous place of I won't go into the spoilers, but so yeah, that's there's that, and there's Ruins of the Past that explore. I think it's next, that explores a handful of kind of like really, really cool, interesting sites in the mortal realms. So it gives you some really cool stuff to drop into your game. So that's going to be cool. And after that, we're working on Champions of Chaos, which will be a new rule book. Focused on playing in the Age of Sigmar from the Chaos side. So that's going to be great fun. Actually, there's some brilliant bits that we're working on there, even though I do say so myself. But some really, like, what does it really mean to be the opposite side of that coin, or what the junior to middle ranking characters on the chaos side of things, like how does that actually work? So yeah, there's been lots of really interesting sort of like explorations of that, and how because we didn't want to go straight in sort of like at the low levels, because I think you need to quite carefully construct that campaign, which is, we will come to that, but I think that the really interesting part of that would be, you've got to be one of the movers and shakers, one of the schemers, what do you do? Like, how do you, they've all got it's not really like you can't just go to the centralized chaos power of your choice armory and check out a few demon blades and go for it. How do you build that power base? How do you actually like put together your schemes and your plans and your plots and stuff like that? If depending on which place you land with the characters, how do you how do you go to who are you, how do you tempt somebody in Excelsis to start pulling together some of that wonderful prophecy currency, and just lots of things like that. So I won't say too much, obviously we're in the middle at the moment, but there's lots of nice bits and pieces, and building a power base, and you're collaborating with all the other players as well. It is a group that's bound together, but within that, everybody's got their own kind of schemes. They're all chaos, but they're in it for themselves as well. So so that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that.
That sounds great. Yeah, that sounds really fascinating.
That'll be cool. We're kicking off the chaos stuff as well on the WFRP side. So there'll be the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay will also have a couple of chaos things coming in, and we're trying to at the moment looking at how we approach that angle of it as well. What do we actually want the experience at the table to be? I think with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, it's about the temptations, I think, isn't it? It's the how does chaos get its claws into people? How do those cults start? So that'll be very a little bit can't talk. Should have a drink of water. That's what I should do. Yeah, so looking at that kind of how actually you'll encounter this stuff. So yeah, that'll be really cool. Then with Imperium Maledictum, so we're right at the start of that, which is a very exciting place to be. So yeah, that's the D100 powered Warhammer 40,000 game of espionage and yeah, working in the shadows and lots of investigation. And yeah, we've got Wrath and Glory, which we've got yeah, a good few things lining up for release on that as well. Yeah, Wrath and Glory is the action adventure Warhammer 40,000 game. So yeah, Imperium Maledictum is the more political, yeah, the war in the shadows, and yeah, that kind of stuff. So which yeah, it's I think it's settling into place really nicely. I think it's quite hard to do both in one system. So I think so yeah, so it's been really, really good to be able to sort of really concentrate the strengths of different systems on different styles of play. So yeah, that's been really good. And Imperium Maledictum, so sort of like harks back to some of the earlier Warhammer 40,000 role-playing games. And well, I say that in sort of like it covers similar subjects, and obviously the D100 system as well. And but we've brought in the kind of what we learned from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and all the work on that. Yeah, there's some new bits and pieces that have come in to really help the themes of the game shine really, and to let you do the things that you would do in those sort of situations. So yeah, that's one of the difficult things I think for non-action adventure Warhammer 40,000 is most people who are in the Imperium are kind of they're in their place in the Imperium, and they don't really have the opportunity to move around an awful lot. So it starts off with you gain a patron who's somebody who is high up in the hierarchy, and they have things that they want done that they can't really be seen directly to be doing, or perhaps they don't want to be, or just maybe they need somebody expendable. So they've used their authority to pluck you from your place in the Imperium machinery, and yeah, forge you into a group of well, varying competence levels, let's face it. And yeah, get you off to getting off to do their whatever it is that they need doing. So it's a really nice setup. I think it's and then you've got that that reason and the resources to actually to move around, to go places, to investigate things. There's loads of really nice kind of like conditions built into it as well. So maybe your patron just never wants you to know that you're working for him, so you can't exercise any of his authority, or if you do, he's like almost worse than your opposition in how angry he is that you sort of had shown him to everybody, or shown that he's even interested in this part of space. So yeah, the patron system is a really nice way of having that kind of like a mixture of forging the party together and quest giving and all the rest of it, with a load of uncertainty in there as well, because you never know exactly what there are there's hidden information about your patron that the GM has, and that can come back to bite you at any moment. So yeah, that's really nice. And then sort of drawing the characters, and I think with a difference from some of the earlier Warhammer 40,000 games, rather than sort of have a rule book covering one faction, and then sort of like having a new game every now and again, I wanted to sort of have that core kind of the core rulebook and the general presentation, and then with some specifics as well to get your teeth into as the rulebook, and then we'll be introducing factions with as expansions. So the Inquisition will be the first one. So there'll be a player's guide and a GM's guide to the Inquisition. That's coming on really nicely. So that's one of sort of like the differences. What else is in there? Yeah, we've got again, combat is we've gone through that with a look to making sure it's sped up a bit, doesn't go on too long, haven't got that whiff factor, but really sort of satisfying, and it's quite deadly as well. It's quite a vicious game. But it really rewards preparation and tactics, and putting a bit of brain power into it. So basically you get if you've done some of those things, then you can get a modifier to an action each turn. So if you're surprising and ambushing, exactly who's coming and where they are and sort of how they're equipped, then it can actually be the combat starts and finishes very quickly because you've done all those things that mean they're totally by surprise. They don't stand a chance, and it's done. And then there's a morale system built into there as well. So again, another of those sort of like one of those curses of long combat, isn't it? Where you've got like 12 gangers in a role-playing game situation, and you've got to kill all of them. And the last three aren't really, there's not much challenge there. So we've put in that system so that some people will, in some situations it makes sense that they would fight to the death, but a lot of times, if they're not that bothered about the objective personally, the three people have been told to not let anyone into this bar, they're probably going to let people into this bar. If one of them gets hurt, they haven't got enough motivation there. I mean, unless they know they will be hunted down and killed afterwards, in which case, they probably will. So again, just really trying to make things happen as sensibly as possible, and not ending up in any kind of those counterintuitive kind of things where it's just like, this is ground on for a long time now, and the point that the fight would serve in the adventure, that point was made within half an hour, or 10 minutes even, and you don't need to spend the next hour executing everybody shot by shot. Just I
mean, so it sounds like the Imperium Maledictum is closer to the sort of grim and perilous Wolfrup, whilst Wrath and Glory is closer to the sort of Soulbound kind of high adventure sort of stuff, right?
I think there's definitely those parallels there. Definitely. It's there's something about the hives and hive worlds and it's not just, I mean, they really stick out. I think everyone who's played Necromunda a lot will always have a very soft spot for a hive world. But there's and as we saw it on the Warhammer Plus animations as well, the interrogator. There's a lot of really really cool stories and things to explore in that sort of setup. And I think it's always been quite integral to the setting, hasn't it? That idea of bits of the rival camps in the Imperium being kind of big at war with each other to some degree or another.
Hugely inefficient and corrupt in many ways, right? Just because of the very nature of it.
It's just like inconceivable in scale, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. So lots of really cool stuff there, and Imperium Maledictum is just really aimed at that. There's an influence mechanic as well, which is really helps to bring some sort of game rules to that side of things too. So you can some of that's secret as well, so you can have you think you have a certain amount of influence with certain factions, and then you find out that you really don't, because your patron has, like, I don't know, done them wrong at some point in the past, and oh no, we thought this was going to be easy, and no, they the AdMech don't generally fire on us when we're just paying them a friendly visit. But no, cool. That's just hit stores as well. So it's really, it's always just really nice seeing it getting into people's hands when you've been working on these things for so long, always really good. So feedback's been good so far, so touch wood that continues.
It was high on my list for the next for 2024 to try and get the sort of campaign going and sort of explore it. I love Necromunda, right? So you like say, spending some time in a hive world seems like a really fun idea to me. But Dom, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's been really great. My thanks to Dominic for taking the time to talk to me about his career in gaming, the creation of WFRP 4th edition, and so much more fun stuff. It really was a pleasure to talk. If you enjoyed this and want to know more about the history of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, then keep an eye on the channel for my series on the making of the games. And if you want to support me in making more documentaries and interviewing more legends from the gaming industry, then feel free to check out my Patreon, my Ko-fi, or even just join my Discord. I've put links to all three in the description below. Thank you again to Dom. Thank you for watching. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery.